terms of the seeing stars, really enjoyed seeing the way Lindamood-Bell teaches the different sounds and the reading. I'm a scientist, it seems very scientific.
Welcome to Lindamood-Bell Radio. That's Mary Pat, a molecular scientist and mother of 4 children, 3 of whom have attended the Lindamood-Bell Learning Center. Are you concerned that time away from school and distance learning have impacted your child's literacy skills or academic performance? Lindamood-Bell summer programs for reading, comprehension, and math can help students catch up or get ahead in learning. In a matter of weeks, your child can feel more confident and prepared for school in the fall. Our evidence-based intervention is individualized, one-to-one, and proven effective for all types of students with challenges that affect learning, including dyslexia. Spots are filling fast. Enroll now to receive 25% off the first week of instruction. Learn more at lindamoodbell.com/tilt. I'm Dave Hungerford, but today's podcast is taken from an interview conducted by my colleague, Owen Main. Give it a listen.
I'm Mary Pat, and I live in Arlington, Massachusetts, where luckily there's a Lindamood-Bell. And I have 4 kids. The oldest is Emma, and she is 16. And I have 3 other kids, 2 boys in the middle, Simon and Callum, and the youngest is Joy.
So, big picture, how did you find out about Lindamood-Bell?
So we've had a full range of reading experiences in our family. My oldest taught herself to read when she was 3, and we thought we were golden. She tried to hide from us that she knew how to read because she was afraid we wouldn't sit and read out loud with her anymore. So we were in a fish store, or in a pet store one day, and she saw a fish tank, and she said, "Why does it say gone fishing?" And we were like, when did she learn to read? So we thought we were golden. But then when Simon was in, I think about 2nd grade, we realized he still couldn't read, and he was avoiding signs. He wouldn't even look at signs. And he was still mixing up his P's and Q's and B's and D's, and we were very concerned. And we had another friend whose son also had similar issues, and she had discovered Lindamood-Bell, and so we came here, and we were quite surprised actually, because Simon came I think the first day for 4 hours or 3 hours maybe, and we thought that was going to be a lot after school, and he was thrilled and he came out very confident and chatty, and you could see that he really felt that he could do this now. So that was great. And then Callum went to an experimental science school from kindergarten, where it turned out they actually never taught him to read. So we discovered that we were a little faster to pick him up around 1st grade, and realized that he just needed some supplemental phonics and reading, and he was probably here the shortest, just 1 month, and that was all it kind of took him to get over that hump. Going back to Simon, he definitely had some sort of symbol recognition issue, and when we talked to experts, we were sort of given the choice whether we could do a lot of testing, which was quite expensive, at which point we would know exactly what the problem was, but we wouldn't have done anything to fix it. Or we could bring him here and just help him get over it without knowing exactly what it was, and we thought that was definitely the better choice. And then Joy, the youngest one, she actually had a stroke when she was a neonate, and she has some brain injury, so learning is a little harder for her, and she needs a little bit more support. So Lindamood-Bell has been great for that as well.
So you kind of had a picture that Joy was maybe going to need some help ahead of time, but when it's your 2nd child, and like you said, your 1st child kind of learned how to read so easily, I'm interested in kind of what that's like when you kind of come to that realization that, oh my gosh, and maybe it was more of a gradual thing, but in terms of that realization, but probably at some point you said, oh man, we need to look at some things and try to get some help for Simon. what was that like as a parent? I mean, you're an educated person.
Yeah.
What was that like to go through?
Yeah, so I guess your question is like, how did we recognize that Simon was struggling? And it was hard because our oldest had learned to read very quickly on her own, and my husband and I both learned to read before we even went to kindergarten. So this concept that reading was hard was a struggle for us. And we saw it in his schoolwork, and we saw it when you would go to, say, a museum or something like that. He wouldn't be able to read the boards. And we, of course, tried to do as much reading aloud as we could with him, but that didn't seem to really be getting over the hump of what the issue was. And the more we tried and the less success we had on our own, I think that was kind of the path of concern, was that we kept ramping up our efforts to try to help him learn to read, and we did a program online called Reading Eggs, which was good, but still didn't get him all the way there. So that was when luckily someone had mentioned Lindamood-Bell to us.
So what was your first impression of it here, of Lindamood-Bell?
Honestly, I thought it was a little like a cult. I was like, my goodness, how can you send your kids after school for hours of school-like work? And they come out so happy, and they never complained about coming here. And I thought, this is amazing. Yeah, and I've watched. It's quite impressive how happy they are here.
Yeah, what do you think the difference is there in terms of kids being able to hang in there like that?
I think it's I think the difference in why they can do it here is it's a very positive experience for them. Even, I don't know what the current thing is, but even there were little stones going from one jar to the other, or rewards and star cards, and just everyone here I've always found is very positive and encouraging. And I think they not only help the kids' technical skills in reading, but also their confidence, that they feel like they can do this, and it helps them see their progress, even if maybe their steps of progress are smaller than their classmates in school. It gives them the sense that they still can make progress.
What was Simon's experience like there, and just kind of take us down that road in terms of
on the first day?
Yeah, on the first day, and then kind of as the weeks progressed.
Okay. So Simon's experience with Lindamood-Bell, he came the first day, and I think we were all had a little trepidation because we hadn't been here before, and it was after school. He was a little bit tired already. I think he was in second grade then, and I was concerned that it was going to be too much for him after a full day of school. And so I was really surprised when I came to pick him up, and he was just ebullient with happiness and confidence, and he was it was great. And he's usually a very quiet fellow, and every time I would pick him up after Lindamood-Bell, he was extremely chatty and had a lot to say, which was also a really nice feature. I think he really felt the confidence in himself and in his reading and in his own expression of himself. I think that really helped him a lot too, was that it gave him ways to express himself and verbally. So Simon's particular schedule with Lindamood-Bell was that I think he came for 2 or 3 weeks for 4 hours a day, and then sort of the last week or so was spread out over many months, or a couple months. And sometimes he would also come back for a little bit of boost, and that was really all he needed to get over his difficulties with reading. And since then, he's become a super avid reader. I've found his light on at 1, 2 in the morning reading, and he plowed through a couple whole series of books, and we're a very book-friendly family, so we're really excited about that, because we were sad that maybe we'd have kids that didn't like to read. That was just not good. So,
and what's that like for you guys to see that change, and just I guess non-academically even, sometimes you see things when kids are more confident in terms of reading that come up too.
Yeah, I think having the confidence to read helped Simon throughout his life. in so many ways. Like, one, it's just like you can understand the world around you if you can read signs and things like that. But then the other thing, I think, having literature and stories open to you is that you start to realize that there's so many other people too who have experienced the same things that you, and maybe somebody that lived 50 or 100 years ago, or a fictional character. And I think that really helped him too, realizing like I may be different in my school class, but there's a lot of people like me. And so we definitely saw his overall confidence, and when he was upset about something, he used to have some trouble to express that, but now he can really verbally tell you like, well, this is what's bothering me, or this is how I feel. And I think that was all skills he learned here.
You said he's doing really well in school. One thing I always ask, do you know like pre and post test scores, or I know you guys talked about that, I'm sure, with your...
Yeah. So in terms of testing, he had some like ERBs, some of the standardized testing done, and he was like definitely, I think, below average in reading. And I think the last time he took standardized tests, he was in the high 80 percentile, so it's a huge change.
What does that mean for him for like moving forward? Like you said, he's an avid reader now, but like in school and everything else, what's that mean for Simon?
So it's had, in terms of how that's affected Simon's, potential in school. When he applied to middle school, to a selective private high school, or private middle school and high school, and he was able to get in, and not only get in, but really succeed as well. And there's quite a lot of reading and other things required of him that I think if he still was having any struggle reading, that would be near impossible. It's also open to him things at his school, like they have a lunchtime book club, and he always participates in that. So that's really great to see as well.
Awesome. Okay. So Simon came and he was here. It seems like none of your kids were here maybe at the exact same time, but they've kind of come at various times throughout. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So none of the kids were here for a long time together. I think sometimes over the vacation, or like in the summer in August, we've done a boost week before school starts again, and then they've been able to come together.
Cool. So after Simon came, then next was Callum, right?
Yeah, Callum. So Callum's experience and identifying it was very different. Callum had developed a lot of coping skills for the fact that he couldn't read. And that was kind of confusing for us. And when we brought him to Lindamood-Bell for testing, they said, oh, actually, no, he needs a little more work than Simon, which was kind of a surprise to us. And we were glad that we had picked it up a little younger in him as well. So Callum came for a full month of half days, and his school was very happy with that because they knew that they weren't meeting his needs in learning to read. And then after the first 4 weeks of half days, then he continued for a couple months, a couple afternoons a week of school. And he is now a very, very excellent reader as well. He, not quite at Simon's level of plowing through series yet, but he's getting there. He's a couple of years younger, so we have great expectations that he'll be just the same. But I think for Callum, the reading has opened up different things for him. He really enjoys reading books that others in the family have read and can discuss with him. So he and I have been reading the City of Ember series lately and really enjoying the thought experiment of all that and discussing what different parts of it mean. So that's been really fun.
So as a parent, like going from having kids who are struggling to read to, like you said, like having real conversations about books that they're reading, not that long after having instruction here. That must be really nice as a parent to go to see kind of both of those things through.
Yeah. So, having kids who are able to read and to be able to share your love of reading and your the books you enjoy as well has just been amazing. And and seeing how the world opens to them as well. I know we were traveling and we were at a museum and we were just trying to, make sure that we kept up the reading skills, and we said to Callum, can you read this sign out loud? And he did, and it was great. And we were walking back to the car and he said, if I hadn't gone to Lindamood-Bell, I wouldn't be able to do that. So that was really, really super to see that he was really able to feel confident and to know that he could read whatever was around him.
And it sounds like his school wasn't like the keenest reading instruction happening, even though it was probably a pretty cool school, it sounds like, in terms of an experimental science and whatever.
Yeah.
School. How has that been kind of a nice, I guess, dovetailing one to the other, like, figuring out the reading part here and being able to be at a really, it sounds like a fun school.
Yeah. So part of Callum's trouble with reading was that he had gone to an experimental science and leadership school, and because they were able to spend a lot of time doing hands-on things in the classroom, they didn't actually do a lot of traditional phonics or worksheets or reading. And on one hand, that was great because Callum thought school was just the coolest place in the world where you got to do all this great stuff. And I know, I think my brother started to hate school right in kindergarten, where, he learned that this was a really boring place where you had to sit a lot. So on one hand, it was really great that Callum was having such a positive school experience. On the other hand, not learning to read was not so good either. So Lindamood-Bell really helped fill that gap for us.
Cool. And then, like you said, Joy kind of has like maybe a longer story, right, in terms of having a stroke, etc.
Yeah. So Joy, who's the youngest, had a stroke when she was 3 days old, and she has some brain injury. You would never know it to meet her. But especially since she's our fourth child too, we noticed that things are harder for her to learn. It takes more repetition and more scaffolding of what she knows in order to really get it to stick. And so I guess with Joy, in contrast to the others, we had been watching her closely from the beginning, and we're really glad that we knew about Lindamood-Bell at that point, because I think we started her here when she was quite young, maybe 4 or 5. So her path has been a little different. Also, she's kind of stuck in the schedules of the older kids, so she's come whenever she can for a week of sort of half days or 2 weeks of half days, and whenever she has like a school break, she's come for half days as well to give her a boost and to really support her learning. And she's doing great. She's keeping at grade level and she likes reading, so that's all good.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you just kind of about what you saw here and what you see in terms of how they're teaching. I'm sure you sat in on some sessions.
So I've had the opportunity to come in and watch some of the sessions each time one of the kids have been here, and that's been really great. My kids have done a lot of the different sort of modules of Lindamood-Bell, like seeing stars or visualizing and verbalizing. And I guess most recently Joy has been doing the visualizing and verbalizing, and listening to her and the teacher go back and forth of, so I'm picturing this, and what's missing, and is it snowing? And Joy's like, no, it's summer. And I guess as a parent too, that's been really useful for me for reading at home too, to like have those skills and to have this modeling of what kind of questions and how to help Joy learn and what to reinforce at home too. So that's been really fun. And to see that. In terms of the seeing stars, really enjoyed seeing the way Lindamood-Bell teaches the different sounds and the reading. I'm a scientist, it seems very scientific, and I really like the nonsense words. I think that really tests not, do you really know this sound, and not just you've learned to recognize the word as well as the sound. And I think that when they really know that versus just trying to kind of get through, then that's one of the things that gives them a lot more confidence in reading and sounding out words. And you see them take on new words with really good confidence because they know what the possibilities of each sound are.
I think it's really interesting because we talk to a lot of parents who are, economists or scientists, like really well, highly educated parents who are totally bought into kind of some of the, culture, I guess, here, or kind of what do you think like is different about that part of it versus even like a school setting?
So let's see. When Simon first had trouble reading, there's a friend of mine who's actually an MIT professor, and her son had come here, and she said, you have to go. I've researched it. They have really great methods. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. I mean, generally anything she said was good. So I thought, well, she's done all the research. I'll go ahead and try it. And I came from my first meeting, and it sounds almost too good to be true. And I think, if your kids have been through any struggles, that there are a lot of options available, and as a parent you have to figure out which ones are actually going to be effective for your child, and there's often not a lot of help in figuring that out. And so I was a little skeptical at first, but I thought it couldn't hurt to try it. And but the more I learned and the more I saw how it works and how the program works, I think I'm fully committed that this is the best place. One thing I think really helps is, and again, coming from sort of a science background, I really appreciate the testing, and especially that the testing is offered free. The kids see it as a positive thing. They don't mind coming here for testing. I really like that you can see the quantifiable progress. You don't have to imagine there's progress or think like maybe they would have gone on and like learned to do this anyway. You can really numerically see how they're progressing through the program. And I always worry a little bit about programs that don't provide any quantifiable output. So that's one thing. I think also just the one-on-one attention with the kids, and really working on what each child is struggling with is really the other thing that makes it work. I think, it's not like an iPad program or, some tape you listen to or special headphones that vibrate your brain. This is an actual person who is sitting there and saying, oh, she has trouble with this sound, or she's not realizing this, and really getting to know the kids. And, they come in, they have a lot of the same teachers each week, and that sort of close knowledge, and then they can help scaffold them out of whatever trouble that they're having. So I think also the way Lindamood-Bell sort of dissects reading into imagery and sounds and different pieces of reading, and identifying which of those pieces is a struggle and really focusing on that's the other part. Like, I didn't even realize there were so many parts of reading until I came here. So that and it makes complete sense when you see it laid out, all the different aspects of reading. That really works well. So I think all those things work together to really help the kids.
The idea of multisensory integration on some level, in terms of integrating information from visual processing and auditory processing.
Yeah,
it's really it's, of course it's complex, right? It's happening in our brains, but it's interesting when you start to break it down, for sure. You talked about the assessment and being able to sit down and talk to somebody, and I've heard a lot of parents talk about that being a big deal or a big day in terms of their understanding of what exactly was happening with their students. Did you find that to be the case?
Yeah. Let's see. So I found when you come in for the results of the assessment is when you really start to understand what makes Lindamood-Bell work so well, because you first of all see this very comprehensive battery of tests that really gets at each different aspect of reading, and you can, and then it starts to make so much sense to you, like, oh yeah, like, you know, he has trouble picturing things I say as well, or maybe there's trouble with sequencing different events. And it's really great to be able to see those dissected on the assessment, and then you know, whomever is going through the testing with you also can explain, you know, what different materials and methods Lindamood-Bell has to help get through that. And I think as a parent, it's a real relief to know, like, oh, like maybe they only have trouble with this part of reading and this part is okay. So I think, you know, there's always some good news there too.
Like a state test at school will tell you yes or like it's kind of binary, right?
Yeah.
It's like yes or no, versus maybe getting a little bit of more of a breakdown and a why, right?
Yeah. So when you get school testing, you may just get like, okay, your child got a 40th percentile in reading, and it doesn't tell you like, oh, they mixed up the bubbles, or like they actually overthought the question, or you know, they didn't read the answers. At Lindamood-Bell, they actually go through scores on, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 different tests, or 4 maybe, I don't know, it's a lot of tests. And they also like go through some of your child's answers with you, and they have a special notation for when they're reading aloud, picking up, you know, which parts they've missed, and really quantifying that. So you get a really in-depth look at the testing.
What do you see for Simon's future?
For Simon's future, I don't think there's nothing standing in his way anymore. Like he really enjoys engineering, has super spatial skills, and he loves drawing, and he loves building. Currently, he wants to be an architect. So.
How about for Callum? I mean, obviously he's into science if he's at that school, right?
Yeah. So Callum will go to a traditional middle school next year, and I'm really glad that he has such strong reading skills now, because I know that he'll need that in a traditional and actually a challenging middle school setting. And he's really interested in science, and I would expect that's the way he'll go. He loves lasers.
In schools nowadays, sometimes, especially the competitive ones, and we go to, you know, when I go to bigger cities and talk to parents who are, you know, who have kids in even like late elementary school, they'll say it's so competitive, and, you know, this 50th percentile is not the 50th percentile at my school.
Yeah, so Callum also applied to the middle school that Simon's at, which is a private high school, or high school and middle school. It's not the most competitive, but it still requires that all your standardized scores be at the minimum at the 50th percentile. And really, it's like below the 50th percentile, you sort of need not apply. So definitely being able to understand and have those test-taking skills is really useful. I don't love that as a parent. I don't love tests, but you know, I've explained to my kids this is how the world judges you, so it's important that you understand how to take these tests. Actually, before Callum applied to the middle school he'll go to next year, he was kind of struggling with the reading comprehension questions, because he was applying a lot of the knowledge he knew from the world to the questions as well as what was in the reading. And he had scored rather poorly on the first reading comprehension test. And it had been a few years since he was at Lindamood-Bell. So we called and said, you know, can he come in on his vacation and do some tuning up of his reading comprehension skills? And of course they said yes, and we sent him in, and his original score was the 25th percentile. I think maybe he had a little trouble filling in the bubbles, but he had also taken the ERBs and was below average, not that much so, but when he retook the test, after being at Lindamood-Bell, he was in the 86th percentile, and so he's now gotten in, which is great.
I mean, scores aren't everything, but when you see those numbers as a parent,
it's great to be able to quantify that he's moved up so much. And really just with, you know, probably he was here about 16 hours of work, so. And
that was like follow-up work?
Yeah, follow-up work, yeah.
Oh, cool. And then Joy seems like a student who, like you said, kind of comes whenever she can.
Yeah. So Joy comes whenever she can to get a reading boost. She goes to a bilingual school, which so she has a lot of challenges. She's fluent in both French and English. So I suspect a little of it is she doesn't have quite as much time as maybe her particular self needs on reading in English. I wish there was Lindamood-Bell in French as well. That would be yeah.
I mean, but we could do like Vivian French, I'm sure, if we had French-speaking people.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you've had like 3 pretty somewhat different, but 3 good experiences here.
Yeah, so we've had, 3 very different reasons to be at Lindamood-Bell, and they've all had a positive experience, and really their level of reading has soared being here. And I think that if we hadn't had this as an opportunity to help them learn to read, they would have really viewed school as a negative thing, and probably themselves as well, that they had trouble keeping up or they didn't understand the work.
That self-confidence is almost as important as knowing how to read on some level.
Yeah, and Lindamood-Bell has not only helped their reading, but we've had them work on word problems and really great structure for solving word problems, and also some math and sequencing, executive functioning type things as well. And I think that one-on-one careful understanding of where the little gap in understanding lies and fixing that has given them confidence to solve a lot of different problems.
Awesome. What would be words to parents who are maybe in the position you were with Simon, who don't have as convincing a friend as it sounds like you did, right? In terms of like coming there and doing that, what might you kind of tell them that they might not know about Lindamood-Bell, or that they might be wondering about, or trepidatious about taking their kids to a new place, or a tutoring place, learning center, etc.
Yeah. So. We've had a couple friends whose children also were struggling, and they talked to us about, how we had helped our children learn to read, and we have really encouraged them to come into Lindamood-Bell. And I think often they're encouraged by schools or other friends to go to, diagnosticians of reading, or to try other things on their own. And I just tell them, you could, Lindamood-Bell works, and it's obviously much easier if it's a friend and you can convince them versus maybe someone you don't know, but it really does work. Some of our friends, like Simon's best friend's mother, just couldn't believe, like, he went to their house and they, he was reading all the time in the car, and she said, how did you convert him to be such a reader? And I said, well, that was really Lindamood-Bell that converted him to be a reader, not us. And I think, we tried a lot. Like, it was a big decision for us, the investment to come here. And but I'm so glad we're happy to make other sacrifices, that like Joy can come here for boosts in reading, because I think reading is really the foundation of everything you're going to learn, and so that's been huge to us. So I would encourage you to start here and to see what Lindamood-Bell has to say about where your child is struggling, and that may be enough.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.
And thank you for listening. You can see a video of Mary Pat on our YouTube page. Her photos of her children are fantastic, by the way. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Instagram TV. But best of all, our website, LindamoodBell.com/tilt, has all the information you need. We are Lindamood-Bell.